Okay, well, great. I want to thank everybody who is on this workshop, this Zoom workshop this evening, for being here. This is the first Money Matters workshop of 2021 for FPV, Family Promise of the Verdugos. And we're going to start off another year of Zoom workshops. This all began back just about a year ago in March, just after March 13th, when the COVID pandemic rudely interrupted not only our workshops, our in-person workshops, but our lives. And we've been doing this format for the last year. And here we are starting 2021. But I think we're much better after a year of doing this. We know how this system works. We've acclimated to shelter in place. We've sort of figured out how to manage our lives, our work, our families in just such an unprecedented, crazy time. And so with another year already starting here, I wanted to kick it off by talking about smart money decisions in 2021 and taking charge of our finances. Just because we have COVID, just because we've gone virtual, doesn't mean that we're going to put a pause on planning, that we're going to put a pause on our financial planning and making smart money decisions. So it is already February, if you can believe that. So maybe you've given up on some of your New Year's resolutions already at this point, but we're not going to give up on our personal finances. And so what I'm going to be talking about this evening is 5 financial goals that we should have in mind, that we should keep an eye out for as we begin this new year. And really, it's not even about beginning the year. It's really about coming back to these sort of 5 essential things all throughout the year. So if in your planning, you have some starts and stops and some mistakes and you need to have some do-overs, there's no better time than now or whenever that is to restart again and come back to these 5. So that's what I want to focus on this evening as sort of a reminder, right? So when it comes to smart money decisions, wow, we learned a lot in 2020. And I'm not just talking about the workshops, I'm talking about just managing our finances in general and having to learn from trial and error in a life that we didn't really anticipate at all a year ago. So I just sort of want to open it up and maybe ask you specifically, what have you learned about your finances, about personal finance, about money management in 2020? What were some of the big takeaways for you personally?
Vivian, you got anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Vivian, why don't you start us off?
Well, of course, the shutdown for us had started March 15th, the day, or March 16th, the day before our big gala. It was decided to just cancel everything, and then people would start working from home. So the first couple of months of me working from home was kind of challenging because I had an old laptop computer that finally died. They had to send me a new computer as soon as possible. We did a thing called remote access, and then my computer in the office had died. So I said, just turn it off. And I had to learn how to, get access to all our stuff from from our database in a different way. But the one thing I learned was it was so cool was because we were working from home, all the expenses went down. Like I only get gas once a month now, and I have a PT Cruiser. So I only get gas once a month now because I don't do that much driving. I paid off 2 loans.
Oh, great.
Because I was able to put more money into it because nothing else was being, I wasn't going shopping. I wasn't going to my movies, which I love to do. The only thing I did have a little bit more expense is the streaming because I'm a big British mystery fan, and they just got BritBox out, and they have some of my favorite mysteries on that one. So I broke down and bought it. I got
Yeah, I mean, you still have to do pleasurable activities. You still have to have fun. You still have to live life, right?
Yeah.
So I think, Vivian hits on a couple of very important lessons that I think we could all probably raise our hands to, in that we experienced, in this transition. Maybe a lot of us are working remotely or working virtually from home. That lowered a lot of our expenses. It lowered gas costs. It lowered maybe public transportation costs. Mm-hmm. It lowered anything associated with commuting and going back and forth to work. And it's not until we sort of had to be in lockdown that we really realized, wow, there are so much additional extra expenses that were maybe sort of being added up even in that commute, whether it was grabbing coffee or grabbing fast food or, again, paying for auto maintenance, paying for gas. And we could see really now how much we were spending just to do our jobs, right? And take that all away. And now you have some associated costs with technology, doing things virtually. Like you were saying, Vivian, perhaps it was related to maybe we all realize, gosh, I need a new webcam. I need a new microphone. I need a laptop that is doesn't have a little mouse running on a wheel inside of it. And we had to do a little bit of upgrading, in our technology. And yet at the same time too, I'm just so grateful that many of us weren't completely impacted by a loss of job, while some of us were, right? But that we could manage doing our work and still be employed from home. And I know a lot of people who this was sort of the push that they needed to start that side hustle that they'd always been thinking about, to move forward on an idea that they had. And for a lot of folks to actually find out that it could work. It could actually work. I think it took something sort of big, something major for people to step out and to try that new idea. Try that new business that they've always been wanting to do. Now they're in a position to do that. We're more efficient with our time because we're not commuting. We're finding that we're able to work from home and that we don't necessarily have to go into the office necessarily to get things done. The big thing that I learned, and at least in my household, and I have a household of 4. So for those of you that don't know me, it's me, my wife, my son, who's a sophomore in college, and then my daughter, who's a junior in high school. So all 4 of us, the big thing I learned from a financial planning perspective is I realized that we could survive on spending way less, way less. And budgeting became so much easier when I was confronted with, do we need this thing or do we just want this thing? Right. And so in the very beginning, when we didn't know what our incomes were going to be like, right? We had a workshop where we were talking about where can we go, whether it's our kitchen, whether it's our cleaning supplies, like whatever it is, where can we go and say, what are absolute necessities so that when I'm at Target, I'm not just throwing stuff into my basket just because something's on sale or whatever, but really what are the essentials to surviving? And that was a big deal. I think we learned too that we have much more control over our financial situation than I think we're led to believe, right? Sometimes we get stuck in these financial ruts where we feel like we've made some mistakes, we made some wrong choices, and now we have no more control, right? We're just in a bad place. It's hard times. And there's nothing that I can do about anything.
It's hard to reset when you have that mindset too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that mindset is so much easier to just go with because that's what your brain's been trained to do, right? And that's the path of least resistance. So it's just easier to think that way. So beginning this year here in 21, I want us to think about what can we actually control? We can control our spending. We can control our saving. And some of us say, well, look, Bryan, my employment situation is completely out of my control. I was let go There just aren't any positions out there. There's no way for me to get a raise. There's no way for me to increase my income. Even if it's not something specific like that, we are still in control of our own energy. And the energy that we're putting towards, one, our financial goals and our budgeting goals, right? So even just the energy that we bring to tackling the topic of money can change things for us, right? So even a takeaway like that, we can move into 21 and say, yes, it's still COVID, it's still a pandemic, but I'm even better equipped now that I have a year under my belt of this experience to make changes going forward. So like I said, there's no better time than right now, right? So what I want to talk about tonight are some 5 financial goals that we should lay out at the beginning of the year. You need to ask yourself, what do I want in 21? Or is this just going to look like 2020 all over again, right? Am I just going to keep waking up day after day, doing the same thing, hoping that COVID passes us by, we get these vaccinations rolled out, and then things change? Or am I actually going to start doing something about it now, right? So ask yourself, what do you want out of 2021? Assess where you're at right now here, in February, in the first couple of days of February. A month has already gone by in this new year. Assess where you're at financially. Where do you want to be when we have this discussion again in January, February of 22? Right? Don't even stress yourself out by thinking long-term, like, what do I want to be 5 years from now? If you want to have long-term goals, that's great. But just think, what can I do in the next 12 months? Where do I want to be? And then say, what is my plan to get there? What is my actual financial strategy? What positive energy can I bring to actually making that strategy happen? One of the things that we talked about early on in the year was making smart money goals, right? So right now, maybe you made mistakes in 2020. It was a terrible year. Give yourself permission to move on, right? So maybe you made some purchases that were not necessary. Maybe you made some money mistakes. Let go of those sunk costs, right? That's what happened in the past. If we keep dwelling on those, like Christina was saying, we're going to remain in that same mindset of woe is me, I can't change anything, so this is just how it's going to be. Let go of that. Let go of the money mistakes. Let's reorganize and reprioritize, right? So early on last year, we talked about smart money goals. This is a great time to come back at the beginning of this year and readdress that. So when you ask yourself, what do I want in this year? You have to write it down. You have to write it down. It has been psychologically proven. It's been proven in behavioral finance that, and not just for money, but anytime we write something down, we are more likely to begin developing habits to progress and change our actions, right? So we could say all day long, I want to save, right? But if we're not writing that down and making that a specific goal, we are less likely to do it. Okay. So remember, our money goals have to be smart. They have to be S, specific. How much are you going to save this year? Right? They have to be measurable. They actually have to be achievable to your specific situation. They have to be realistic and they have to be timely. What's your timeline for it? Is it in 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months? Right? When do you want to accomplish these things? Right. So
how about the why? I think the why is important too.
Yes. And the why is, the why is absolutely core. It's critical, right? Why do you want to achieve this goal? Is it personal? Is it for your family? Is it for your children? What is the specific why behind the goal that you're looking to achieve? Right. If you don't have that core sort of motivation or inspiration, we can make goals all day long. Nothing's going to happen. Right. So of the 5 goals that I want you to start thinking about for this year, goal number 1 is your budget. You have to commit to a written budget. Again, you can't just say, I'm going to spend less. Okay. Having a budget it's the foundation. It's the cornerstone to financial success. Okay. Yes. So right now you have to know where your money is going. I've talked about that over the last year. Every dollar has to have a job, and you have to know where every dollar is going. That way you can know where every dollar is not going. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I make a certain amount of money and I can't seem to pay my credit cards off. Well, that's because you don't know where some of your dollars are going, and some of them aren't going to pay off your credit card, right? They're sort of slipping through the cracks. They're leaking out of the bucket, right? So knowing where your money is going first is key, and you have to build out this budget. If you need an actual spreadsheet, a budget tracker, we have it. Contact Christina, contact myself. We'll email you one. If you look at it and you're like, Bryan, I am not a spreadsheet wizard. I do not know how this thing works. I'll have a one-on-one Zoom call with you and we'll walk through and we'll put the numbers in and I'll show you how it works. There's formulas in the spreadsheet that will start doing the math and the calculations for us, and it will automate the system. So once we get initial values in for you, now we can start tracking for 12 months. Okay. So when I say a written budget, I don't mean like on 40 yellow Post-it notes as a written budget. I mean one location where maybe you are handwriting it, or maybe it is electronically on a spreadsheet, or maybe it is in an app on your phone, but it has to be visibly in front of you. Okay. So if you have a budget going, good for you, you've started it, but when was the last time that you actually circled back to it and looked at it and looked to see what's happened over the last 3 months? What was our spending like over the holidays? What was my spending like in December year over year? How much did I spend this year compared to the year before that? There are certain times of the year where we spend more because of things going on in our lives. Look at that over time so that you can now plan for December of this coming year, right? Review and revise that budget, okay? It's a tool to help you not spend money on things you don't need, right? And it's a way to find more money. We've talked about this over and over as well. Go into your expenses and see, where are we overspending? Why are we paying for 4 subscription services when we only use 1? Right? Bryan, I cut my cable. Okay, good for you. But then you added 6 subscription services. So you're back to paying what you were paying for cable, right? So let's see, where can we cut costs? Man, I had a goal of not spending so much on fast food. And I'm not spending on fast food, but Uber Eats is always coming to my place. So you replaced one cost with another cost. This is a great time to go back into the budget and see where you thought you were making progress by changing habits, but you replaced them with other habits. Right?
Bryan, would that be the time in which you like look and see if your interest rate went up for something, or if you were being charged an extra fee for on your cable bill for something, or is that like a separate process? Keep that separate.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a perfect place and a time. Any month is a perfect time to look at your expenses and see how they've gone up. So you have to be constantly updating your budget to know this, right? My cell phone bill just did this.
Yeah, me too. That's why I mentioned it.
So my cell phone bill is on auto pay, same date every single month. And they text me when they're going to take that payment. And I saw they give the amount, Verizon, and it went up by $15. Now, most people are going to go, what's the difference in $15? I don't even want to bother. right? Well, first thing is I want to know, why am I paying extra $15 for what? My service is not any different, right? I don't have more phones in my household. So what am I actually paying for, right? So that's a signal for you to go back to Verizon and say, what is this for? Why am I paying $15 extra and what am I getting for that? And if you're not getting anything and they're not going to change it, well, then like Christina's saying, maybe this is the time to reassess your service provider, right? This is the time when I check my auto insurance, right? I just added my son and I was so afraid my insurance was going to skyrocket because now I have a third driver in the household. But it was a great time for me to find cheaper insurance, right? And get more for my money and get more benefit. End of the year, when your health insurance changes, maybe you're paying for private health insurance and you're using Covered California and you have to select your health insurance plan, right? Great time. I reassess my self-employed health insurance plan to try to save money. That's always sort of the main goal. Where can I cut costs for things I don't need and for ways that I can save money, right? I would rather put that $15 towards some other bill that I need to pay, or that 15 towards savings or something else that I want to do, not to Verizon, right? So yeah, absolutely. And the only way to see the change in these numbers is to do a written budget, to actually be working on the budget from month to month. It does take work. It's not going to magically populate itself, by just tracking it for a week. You got to spend a couple of months doing it. But once it gets set up, it can just roll forward, right? Goal number 2, keep building your cash reserve. Keep building your emergency fund. Keep building your rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it. Savings, emergency fund, cash reserve, cushion, you name it. Okay. If 2020 taught us anything, it's always expect the unexpected, right? So no more of this. Well, we're going to try to go paycheck by paycheck and we're just going to kind of try to get by in life. And if something happens, well, then we'll deal with it then. No, we're not doing that anymore. This has taught me we have to have something in the bank. Okay. So it used to be the rule of thumb was you should have 3 to 6 months of income saved, right? That was the rule of thumb. And we've talked about rule of thumbs before. They're just a general rule, but most of the population can't save 3 to 6 months in savings. There's just no way of income, right? 3 to 6 months of income in savings. So let's make our own rule of thumb. Let's make our own goal. Let's just say $1,000. Okay, so think about this. If you had not just 1,000, but if you just had that extra 1,000 on top of whatever you had in savings back on March 16th, like Vivian was talking about, think about how much more just peace of mind maybe you would have had with just that extra 1,000, right? And I'm not talking like that 1,000 would cover all of your bills and your rent and all of that and take care of you. But if you just had an extra $1,000 in March a year ago, maybe you would have just breathed slightly easier for several weeks, right? Create your own stimulus check is what I'm saying. Don't wait for the government to come through. We've seen how long that's taken, right? So maybe this year you decide I'm going to save $1,000. Maybe it's going to take you 3 months to do that. Maybe it's going to take you to the end of the year. It doesn't matter to me. I'd like you to have an extra $1,000. You say, Bryan, where am I going to get that? I know where every single dollar goes because by the end of the month, I don't have any more dollars, right? So it's going out everywhere. I guarantee you, if you start doing a written budget, right, you are going to find that $1,000. And to my last point, the way you're going to find your 1,000 over these months is you're going to pay yourself first. I've emphasized that over the last year as well. Mm-hmm. Savings does not occur if we have money at the end of the month. We know we're not going to save it. Because if you have any money left over at the end of the month, it rolls into the next month, or you spend it because you're like, wow, we have extra this month, right? So at the beginning of the month, I want you to pay yourself first. So like we did in our budgeting, we are going to write saving as an expense. That's something that we're going to pay ourselves. We're going to make our savings a bill. And it's going to be one of our fixed expenses that we put into our budget at the beginning of the month. And we're going to save, I don't care, $20, $25, $100, $300, whatever you budget for. And if you can't do it the next month, lower the dollar amount, lower the goal, right? We said that can change. But what do most people do? They go, wow, I'm going to save $500 a month. They have an aggressive goal. Second month, they can't do it. And they're like, forget this. And then their savings goal is gone, right? So set yourself up for victory, even if it's small victories. Save 25, save 50, right? Get your 15 back from Verizon, save that. It doesn't matter, but we're going to pay ourselves first, okay? Third goal. Let me just get over here. My cursor has to be over here. Sorry, guys.
Okay, guys, so Tess, when do you guys pay yourself?
First.
But when? In the beginning or the end of the month? Huh?
I get paid twice a week, so twice a month. So
yeah. So
whether Bryan, it's doing something crazy.
I know. It's freaking out on me here. Give it a sec to catch up. Yeah. Whether it's at the beginning, if you get paid bi-weekly, whether it's in your second paycheck, however you want to do it. What I'm trying to really just get at is that you automate your savings. It's not if you have money left at the end of the month. There should be a line item expense in your budget for savings.
Right.
It's a bill. You're going to pay it and it's going to go into your savings. Okay, here we go. Can you see this now?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Goal number 3. We're going to deal with debt in 21. Now, the goal ultimately would be to be debt free. And so like Vivian was saying at the top of the hour, one of the things that she really worked on in 2020 was reducing debts, paying off loans, paying off credit cards.
Good job, Vivian.
Yeah. This is going to be like an ongoing struggle that we have to wrestle with. So even if by the end of 21, even if you're not debt free, I want you to move towards that goal, right? Last year, we talked about 2 different strategies to pay off debt: snowball or avalanche. If you remember the concept of a snowball, right? You line up your debts, you list them out, you know what you owe, right? And you start with your smallest debt. So maybe you have that random Target card, Macy's card, some department store shopping card where there's like $35 on it, right? That's maybe the smallest debt that you have. That's like forming that small snowball, and you're at the top of the hill, right? And you're going to pay that off first, right? And the payments that you were going to make, you now don't take those payments and start spending that money. You roll it into the next debt. So you begin to roll that payment over to the next thing that you owe. And maybe that's another, I don't know, a Visa card, right? And now you have more money to put towards that card. And as you pay that one off quicker, that snowball is rolling downhill. And when that card gets paid off, right, you don't now start spending the $125 a month that you were paying on that first card. It rolls into the next card, and now you're paying more on that next debt. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls downhill, right? Or the reverse is to get more aggressive and take your biggest debt and throw the most money at it and create an avalanche, right? That just slides downhill. Most of us can't do that because we don't have enough extra at the end of the month, or we don't have enough discretionary income to just put a ton of money every single month towards a student loan or to paying off a car or a credit card, right? So for most of us, we start with the snowball, get some little victories, and keep rolling those payments over and over and let those payments get bigger and bigger and bigger to hit those bigger debts. Right? So this year, I don't want us to lose sight of paying off our debt. We can't wait for, the government to decide that they're going to cancel student loan debt or whatever. We still have to take an active role in working on this until that happens. So let's deal with debt. Let's move towards being debt-free. Even if by the end of the year you're not debt-free, you're so much more closer than you were 12 months ago. Goal number 4. This year, we're going to spend with purpose. Right? We said one of the things that we learned at the very beginning here was, man, there's a lot I certainly do not need. Right? So that's what spend with purpose means. We're only going to be purchasing the things that are absolutely critical to our household. So assess what you need versus what you want. Just because something is on sale doesn't mean you need to get it, right? Basically what I'm saying is, and we've heard this phrase before, is live within your means, right? Live within your means. And we've been tested on that this last year, and we've seen that we can do it. Right. So if you've ever felt like, man, I think I make decent money, but where is it all going? Set some rules about non-essential spending. Okay. So something to keep yourself accountable, right? Maybe if you're in Jocelyn's case, let's say you go to a partner or a spouse, right? And you say, the only way that we're going to spend on non-essential things, so other than like rent and utilities and other like fixed expenses, is if I write it down and I share it with the other person. Right? So Jocelyn's not online over there buying stuff off of Amazon, right?
Are you sure, Jocelyn? Caesar.
While her husband is buying stuff, and no, we're always sharing what we're doing in order for us to not nag at each other, but to just really say, is this absolutely necessary? Right? Normally, when we write things down, it gives our brain a pause to think about how necessary that item is. And in the end, then we go, yeah, really, I guess I don't really need that. Right? It gives us just enough time to not have impulse buying. Because you have to be more conscious, you have to be more deliberate.
Intentional, Bryan.
Yes, intentional. Yeah. And so communicating with somebody else, writing it down, it gives your brain just enough pause to then really say, is that what's going to make me most happy? Or is it actually seeing my savings increase? That's going to really get me excited versus something I'm going to spend money on and it's going to go in my refrigerator and go bad and I'm not even going to use it. Right? Think about all those bags of Trader Joe's vegetables or whatever. Oh my gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just being straight up honest. Like that stuff goes bad, and that's just wasted money. Wasted money. And so I think to be more like intentional, more purposeful with our spending, go on a cash diet. We've talked about this one before. You're going to only spend a certain amount of cash that you carry with you, right? So no busting out the credit card, the debit card, or whatever, right? Maybe you can't do it that way with groceries and so on, but at least with like extra discretionary spending, you give yourself $50 for the week or $20 or whatever it is. And once you spend it, that's gone, right? That's it. Whatever you don't use, it rolls to the next week, right? I like that idea. Okay, goal number 5. Pay yourself first.
You may have mentioned that, Bryan. I'm not sure though.
Exactly. Yes, of course. At the beginning of the month, right? We're working on setting habits. This is the habit to establish this year. Okay. So this is not just on a monthly basis, but next time we're going to start talking about tax season. We're going to start talking about doing your taxes. I know people who have already mentally spent their refund, right? They haven't even done their taxes yet, right? This is what I'm talking about. Let's figure out of your refund, how much of that do you want to save? I get it. Now, some people have to pay for certain things from their refund and they count on that refund, right? But what if we could sort of divvy it up, pay yourself first from it, and then take care of other things from that refund, right? I would rather have you work towards immediately putting something into your emergency fund or paying down your debt or putting it towards another specific goal that you have, right? Maybe you just want it to sit in the bank just for peace of mind. Sometimes that can be more valuable than stuff, right? So let's try to overcome just good intentions and let's actually build disciplined habits. Okay. In 2 weeks, on February 18th, we're going to start talking about taxes. As it is right now, you can submit your tax return, but the IRS is not going to start processing refunds until after February 12th, right? Which is something new. They're behind. They're backed up because of this last year over COVID, because of stimulus payments, everything else that they had to process. So this year they're telling us, you can get going on your taxes. You can get working on them. You can go to your accountant. You can use your TurboTax. But if you submit your return as soon as you get your W-2s, like right now, they'll get them, but they're not going to start processing your refund until after February 12th. Okay. So just after that opens up and begins on February 18th, right, we are going to start prepping for your taxes. We'll go over some of the tax changes that are occurring. How's the IRS going to handle stimulus checks? Is that going to be taxed as income? Different tax questions that you have. And then what can we be doing for 21, our income in 21? Maybe you did start a side hustle. How are you going to be claiming that income on your 2020 taxes? We're going to go through step by step a lot of these questions as it relates to us and Uncle Sam. Okay. So that'll be for next time. And then in the next 2 weeks, pick back up on that budget. If you need one, let Christina or I know. We'll get you one. If you need help setting it up, let us know as well. We'll schedule a one-on-one and it'll take 20, 30 minutes over Zoom, and I'll sit with you and I'll walk you through that. Okay.
Can we just touch back on that real quick, Bryan, the one-on-one?
Yeah, sure.
Vivian and Jocelyn and Caesar, just so you guys know, I don't know if you were aware, but Bryan does the one-on-one financial planning. It's absolutely free to you guys. It's not just like, oh, let me just sit and rush through. It's basically as many sessions as it's needed to get you on the right track and really secure your financial future. So just keep that in mind. If you want more information about it, you guys know how to get me, reach me, and we'll get you set up.
Yes. I do have a question. Bryan, when you said February 12th, do you mean February 12th of next year they'll give refunds? Because
No, this year.
this year, okay.
Yeah.
I never get my refund.
No, I'm sorry. I should have been more specific. Beginning February 12th of this month is when the IRS will begin processing refunds for your 2020 returns. So normally in past years, as soon as people get their W-2s in January, end of January, they're hard charging to like get their taxes done, right? But the IRS just wanted us to know that, look, they're behind and they're not actually going to get to processing returns until a couple of weeks from now. So even if you got your taxes done at the end of January, you could have sent them in, but just know we have 2 more weeks of them not doing anything with it. So if you were sort of mentally banking on, man, I should get my refund back in 4 weeks or whatever, mid-February, that'll make for a nice Valentine's or whatever. I mean, they're not doing it. So it's going to delay your refund slightly.
Oh, I didn't get a refund anyway because I owed, but this time because the tax return deadline was extended till October.
Yes.
I was able to make payments ahead of time once I found out what my tax was, what my back was due.
Yeah,
it was perfect. It was the first time I ahead of it. So by the time they made it official that they got my tax return, I only owe like $300 out of it and then I was able to pay that off.
And in that way, that tax extension helped a lot of people out, right? Because if there were taxes owed, you could pay in installments. So rather than having, your taxes due April 15th and then owing immediately, we could sort of extend that timeline out when the taxes actually had to be done. It could help you in terms of your budget to actually pay for that too. And I think while I'm sure they would all love to have everybody's taxes done by April 15th, I'm sure that we'll probably see an extended deadline this year as well. Yeah,
because I think the IRS, they're actually short staffed. So yes. A lot of, and plus the fact, I think they have the most antiquitous or system I've ever seen. Like I've been making my payments through the EF, was it? I have this all down pat, people. Like I pay my taxes through the EFTPS system.
Yeah.
And it's great because, the payment goes to the IRS right away. But I was noticing with the IRS, it would be, the payment would be already out of my checking account, which is fine. I don't care. I just want to see the balance go down. So like 3 weeks ago, they took $50, which is what I arranged for. I'm still seeing it as pending. I said, oh, people, I want to see that balance because even though you owe the IRS directly, it's like, and I know there's like penalties and interest. Interest isn't really that bad because I noticed when I was making bigger payments, when I had a chance to do it, I was able to get the balance lower quicker. And and in fact, last year, one of the things I owed went down to a point where I actually asked for a loan for my credit union and I got the loan. So I was able to pay the smaller parts faster, even though I'm paying a higher interest. But because there's no prepayment penalty, I was able to pay like twice a month.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and as you know, there's no expenses now. They're working from home. I just took advantage of it. Yeah,
absolutely. And something that we'll talk about too, speaking of making payments, is if you haven't used the IRS refund app, and I'll show that to you next time. You can get the IRS refund app on your phone. You can track your refund. right? So those of you that get antsy about when is that refund coming, you can check it on the app. And speaking of payments, you can also make payments through the app as well. So that we'll talk about that next time as well. So on February 18th, 6 p.m., we'll do everything taxes. And in the meantime, as Christina was talking about, if you need to reach us, if you need a budget spreadsheet, if you need one-on-one assistance, let us know. We're here to help. So if there aren't any more questions, I'll let everybody get to dinner. And I just really appreciate everybody being here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.